Hi guys, so I welcome you all to day 22 of Anthropology lecture series. So before I start today's lecture, I have an announcement to make. So this is my Telegram channel. You guys can scan the QR code and join my Telegram channel. Here we are making a new anthropology family, and we are going to start a new initiative that we are going to put one previous year question or any question that we are doing from the topic, and you guys can self evaluate each other's answers and discuss on that, and whatever lecture we are taken discuss on that. So in that way you can interact with the fellow aspirants and discuss and take a step towards shared learning, right? So let's get started. So today's topic is Neolithic age. But before starting Neolithic age, in Mesolithic only, yesterday I had covered the tradition of America, that was archaic and desert tradition, along with that Europe part. So in Near East also you just see that in Near East the Near East part was a little more advanced, if you can say, because there they were domesticating both wild plants and animals. So they were in wild plants they were domesticating wheat and barley, and in herd animals they were keeping sheep and goat, right? And there was a culture that is called as the Natufian culture. It is part of the and in Middle East only there is Natufian culture, which is a part of Mediterranean coast, like the Levant, basically the Levant region, spanning from Mediterranean coast to the desert in the east, like the whole the part of it, some part of Iran, some part of Jordan, Israel, Syria, that place, right? So there it was called the Natufian culture. There were high proportion of goats, gazelles, slaughtered they slaughtered young animals for food while keeping adult for breeding. That means they had that concept now, which ones to keep for breeding and which ones to slaughter for food. And they lived in large settlements. Okay, so there was growing sedentism also. So although if we talk about this in period terms, that is, this Natufian culture existed around 10,000 years back, right? So in time period it is somewhere in the Mesolithic era, right? But if we look at the features are mostly similar to that of a settled agricultural community, because there was also domestication of plants and animals. They were culturing, like they were culturing animals also. There was growing sedentism also. Okay, so in that way the in that way more or less it is advanced than Mesolithic period. So if question comes, Mesolithic का पार्ट है, बट Neolithic के काफ़ी फीचर्स इसमें प्रेजेंट हैं. सो ठीक, सो अब हम we'll start with today's topic, that is Neolithic period, right? So after Neolithic ना, वो जो clear cut timelines है ना, that this period started and ended at this time, that is going to somewhere get blurred, because as you see in many places, when I told you in the Mesolithic age in the last lecture also, domestication of plants had started. So this domestication of plants and animals started around different time in different period. For somewhere it started around 8,000 years back, somewhere it started as early as 11,000 years back, somewhere it started around 5,000 years only. So that way different places it started. So now clear cut timelines will not be there, thoda it will be blurred in that sense. But if you have to remember or create a timeline in your mind, you can just say from 5,000 years back Neolithic age started. Okay, so just to keep a timeline in your mind. So now you can see how these people are, you know, trying to do agriculture, and this looks very meticulous and systematic. So of course these people knew very systematic way of doing agriculture. So now let's start with the, you know, what would be the features of Neolithic. First is they deliberately saved seeds for future crops. That means now they had understood that you know, the idea behind farming is that, you know, you keep the seeds, you sow them, and then you know, like get the crop, right? So they had understood by accidentally you know, inventing agriculture to now actually knowing how to do it. They had come a long way. And you know, this is also very you know, like funny to me, because women were the one who accidentally invented agriculture, right? Somewhere in the Middle East only, it was the women who accidentally invented agriculture. And with coming of agriculture, the lifestyle of women, you know, deteriorated over the time. So this point I'm going to cover in the next slides. Do not worry about that. So now they had understood systematically how to, you know, save the seed and then sow it to get a next crop. So that was the first thing. Then they were using polished tools. Of course, I've told you the tools more or less will, you know, either you know, decrease in size, or they'll become more sophisticated, or some more tools will come. But the biggest achievement in Neolithic period were the polished tools. Polished tools means they give the tool a lot more, you know, strength, because वो polished होते हैं. They are you know, very very, आप उनको जब यूज़ करेंगे ना, तो वो बहुत ही उनमें स्ट्रेंथ आ जाती है. वो टूल्स बड़े ज़्यादा जो काम के लिए बनाए गए हैं, उसके लिए आपको कम एफर्ट से वो काम, you know, you can do that work, right? So polished tools were one achievement. Then pottery and weaving. Of course, pottery will change a lot. जब pottery आएगा ना, when pottery came, it changed a lot of things for humans, because with pottery, you know, storing grains became easy. So एक तरह से surplus could be generated, right? If surplus could be generated, that means, you know, you can save it for times when food availability is not there. That means now man could manipulate the environment a little bit, right? And also जब agriculture आया, so agriculture में basically क्या होता है, अभी तक whatever they were producing, it was just hand to mouth. That means there was no surplus, there was no extra production that was happening. But this time with agriculture, on a small piece of land, a lot more could be produced, right? For example, if 5 people are working on the land, they could produce for 10 people. So now these 5 who were freed from agriculture could take up other activities. So that is how leather works, carpentry, you know, trade, many different pottery, weaving, these all professions came, because agriculture could now produce more. You know, there was a way to store that food, so that freed the labor from agriculture, and another activities could be taken by those people. So that way communities could be built. ठीक है ना? So complexity came with agriculture and pottery. So this is considered as important as industrial revolution, of course, because you can see it is just agriculture and it is just pottery, but how many changes it has created in the society, right? Because अगर surplus आएगा, then with surplus will come inequality also. If some people are producing agriculture, over the time they will take land titles also. Some people who are doing trade, they will become merchants in some time, you know, get a lot of wealth, they will create a lot of wealth. So this way मैंने आपको पहले ही बताया कि how women will see कि उनका deterioration हो जाएगा. That means somewhere man you know became a more superior sex, or rather I should say gender, more superior gender, right? So in that way we can see it is just small, not small, but there are only two inventions, that is pottery and agriculture, but just look at the effect it is having on the society, right? So now they had large populations, they could support large populations, and permanent settlements. Obviously they were just moving because in one place they could not have the their food availability for long time, so that reason they were moving. But now they were creating food, they were manipulating the environment, they could store food, so they didn't need to move at that pace so quickly. So then they, the life became a lot more sedentary, they settled at one place, so permanent settlements got created, right? They held title of land, I told you. Conflict over property and resources. Of course, if somebody will take ownership of something, right, where people used to have everything together, now people are taking land titles and owning resources, so obviously there will be conflicts, right, among groups, among people of the same group also. So some groups higher prestige. Of course, over the period of time, if somebody would accumulate wealth, accumulate certain resources, they will also command higher status and prestige in the society, right? So all these things were indirectly influenced by pottery and agriculture. So now this you can see could be the whole expense of the Neolithic period. It was there in India, it was there in China, it was there in whole part of this Europe, then it was there in Mexico, America. So you can just see that, right? And also इस map में अलग अलग भी दिए है, जैसे for example if you go here, so यहाँ पे simple farming societies का दिया है, then nomadic pastoralists का दिया है, hunter gatherers इससे पहले जो upper Paleolithic and all Paleolithic time का हो गया, right? So you can just zoom in the map, you can just take a screenshot of the map, just look कि basically थोड़ा थोड़ा सा कौन से वाले societies कहाँ पे रह रहे थे, right? And one more thing very important and interesting I would want to tell you, it's not like Mesolithic ended and then Neolithic started. Somewhere it was also like, for example, I would say, this is purely hypothetical to make you understand. Here people were following Mesolithic period, but here people were following Neolithic period, because I told you here there are no clear cut demarcations of timeline, right? 8000 years ago Mesolithic भी चल रहा था और कहीं पार्ट पे Neolithic भी चल रहा था, like यहाँ पे they were following Neolithic, but यहाँ पे क्या पता हो सकता है they were still following the Mesolithic period also, because Mesolithic communities in a lot many places rejected the ideas of Neolithic, because they thought it was against their culture, and they didn't want to, they were not in favor of cultivating crops, or many places it was not suitable also for agriculture, like in the desert regions it was not very suitable to cultivate crops. So a lot many places Mesolithic and Neolithic period was going hand in hand, so keep that in mind, right? Okay, so now the tools that they were using, so you can see very interesting tools. This is a saddle quern, which is like आप grains को to break the grains and into small pieces or whatever, I don't know, उसको करने के लिए this is used. अभी भी गाँव में ऐसे कुछ अलग टाइप की चक्की बोलते हैं, right? वो भी even today that's there, right? Then उसके बाद they were using these kind of stone tools, right? Then you can see here they were polished stones, then there were these arrowheads that would be used on a spear, then arrowhead on, then bow and arrow also, right? So these were the kind of tools that were used. Fish hooks bhi the in the fishing region, then scrapers, there were plows aa gaye the for agriculture, that is also important. So these are all the tools that they were using, right? So mostly one more thing apart from one or two, like plow or saddle quern, mostly the same tools that were used in the Mesolithic only. The only thing is that they must have bettered the technology, like polishing them would have given the tool a lot more strength, ठीक है, and reduced their effort, you know, to use it. So in that way. Now comes the so अगर मेरे को Neolithic के बारे में बात करना है, I would divide it into two phases, that is pre-pottery and pottery phase, right? Because you know, although pottery and agriculture, the remains of agriculture and the evidence of pottery we have found in the same strata of layers of earth, matlab, because archaeological excavations have only told us about the, you know, discoveries of the past, right? So even though these both the things were found in the same strata, but there must have been a time where agriculture existed but pottery as such was not there. और ऐसा भी हुआ है in many places that pottery came before agriculture. So I'll tell you both the things. Just start from here. So pre-pottery phase, large number of stone tools, microliths, spearheads, they were getting used. Domestication of wheat and barley appeared. So अभी क्या हो रहा है, pottery start होने से पहले they were using those microliths only. Then domestication of wheat and barley start हुआ. Later times में legumes, lentil, peas, horse beans, ये सब चीज़ें भी कल्टिवेट करने लगे. एंड दे मस्ट हैव बीन यूजिंग क्ले इन रिचुअल कल्ट्स. ये तो हमने देखा था ना, लाइक इन द वीनस फिगरीन ओनली. Mesolithic period में we found Venus figurine in the Europe, right? So that was what? That was a clay sculpture only, right? So it was not that they were not using clay. It is just that they were not using clay to make vessels like pots, flasks, buckets to store grains. That means अभी तक उनको ये idea नहीं आया था कि you know you could make utensils out of it. You could use it as pottery to store food. In that perspective it hadn't come, but of course they were using clay and all, right? So this is one kind of pre-pottery phase. And in many places like in China we have seen at some places that pottery came before agriculture. Okay, so they were using these buckets and many other things, but they were but the agriculture they evolved much later, right? So this was the pre-pottery phase where they were growing every kind of crop, but pottery आया नहीं था अभी, right? And the fully developed village farming. Now this fully developed village farming will only happen when pottery will come. You can see this is the European pottery pictures. This is the kind of pots and vessels that were created in the Europe. So see how beautiful they look, right? How different kinds of pottery it is and how beautiful it is, right? So with fully developed village farming came the sedentary lifestyle, because again हमने बात कर ली है, they did not need to move, they had food, so you know it was in surplus, so you know sedentary lifestyle. Pottery was used for storing grains and vegetables, of course. Then in Near East, as early as 8,000 years ago, both plain and decorated pots were found. ठीक है? So it was not like only simple pottery was there. As early as 8,000 years, I told you ना, you know you can't clear cut say कि कब शुरू हुआ. So in Near East आपको plain pottery मिल रही थी, आपको decorated pottery मिल रही थी, and the evidence comes from Jericho in Levant, Turkey, all of these places. Okay? So earliest pottery had dishes, bowls, flasks, buckets, all of these things, right? And with this they became self-sufficient economies with irrigation at some places. So you can see at many places, because you know agriculture requires irrigation. So if you are doing systematic agriculture, irrigation is very important. That is how they manipulated also, right? Because if you are only dependent on rainfall, you cannot achieve like humongous growth in production, right? For that you need to control in a controlled way, you know, provide water to the crops, right? I'm sorry guys. So so for that irrigation was required, and they had somewhere invented irrigation also. Many places they were doing canal irrigation, many places they were doing pot irrigation. So different kind of irrigation also, you know, they were using. So with irrigation, with pottery, with agriculture, with wheel, okay, wheel is also developed in the Neolithic period. That is why VG Child has called it a Neolithic revolution. Revolution क्यों? Because all of these things had manifold impact on the society and culture at large. एग्रीकल्चर से हमने देखा ना, सरप्लस आया, सरप्लस से इनइक्वालिटी आई, इनइक्वालिटी से यू नो जेंडर डिमार्केशन होगी, रोल ऑफ सेक्सेस you know demarcate हो गए. Then you know there were social stratas that got created, higher, lower, women, men, right, like that. With the pottery, you know, different kind of occupations came in, trade बना, then leather, weaving. So all of that was no less than a revolution itself. हमने देखा भी Mesolithic में we were still being hunters and gatherers, and from hunters and gatherers to becoming agriculturalists, a lot of things have changed, right? So now these are two examples, like in China, Yangshao culture, okay. Here agriculture started around 7,000 years back in the fertile loess soil of Huanghe, okay. Huanghe is a river in China, and there we find fertile loess soil, और उसमें सबसे पहले the agriculture started. They grew millets, corn, rice, right? They did slash and burn agriculture, kept dogs. So it was not like the Mesolithic period, you know, they only had started to domesticate dogs. You know, dogs and humans का रिश्ता Mesolithic से start हो गया था. But now they were keeping dogs to also keep the, you know, protect the group, protect their agriculture fields also. So for that, you know, dogs ka requirement and humans and dogs ka relationship had started. So they were hunting wild camels, deers, they fished and collected wild seeds, right? So everything, pura settled community system had started. They made ceramic bowls and jars, they were weaving, there were leather work, and there was carpentry. So you can see all those generic features only, but it's always nice अगर आपको एक दो examples of that period पता हो, you can just quote them. So Mesoamerica, that is the Central and South Mexico वाला place and Central America वाला region, right? That's called the Mesoamerica. So वहाँ पे animals were much less important in farming, right? So of course every place, it is not going to be prototype, you know, they are not going to be exactly the same for everything. थोड़ा सा here and there alterations will be there, but more or less it would be the same, right? So they were you know crop, they had corns, peanuts, chilies, kidney beans, and 150 different kind of crops that they were planting. And in Indian population, heavy they used animals heavily. That is, somewhere in Central and South Mexico वगैरह they were not using animals, but the Andes population, that is you know on the sides, the मतलब जो mountainous region है, they were using the animals, and as many as 150 different kind of crops were planted in Mesoamerica. So you can see कितना ज़्यादा you know variety and diversity must have come, right? So general features, if we have to conclude the Neolithic period, the groups had become larger, communities had settled, there was complex government. Of course, now when the communities have grown so much, right, हमने पीछे देखा था in Mesolithic only, some kind of political leadership had started, but here तो chiefdoms will come, chiefdoms and small kingdoms, you know, like अगर हम बात करें chiefdom क्या होता है, it's basically a chief who's a leader of the group, you know, he controls the group. So छोटे group में tribal villages, you can say that एक tribe का कोई leader होगा, he would control the whole group and the whole group will work according to the chief, right? So ऐसे करके कुछ छोटे से you know complex governments, और ये chief हो सकता है ऐसे 3-4 लोगों को पॉइंट करे, जो एक देखेगा कि ग्रुप में देर इज सॉलिडारिटी एंड पीस, वन वुड सी कि everybody is getting food, one would see there is no problem with the children and all of that, कुछ भी हो सकता है so complex government had started, right, with people now doing trade, तो conflicts भी होंगे. It was like, for example, if I say this is Africa and suppose in here there is a community, right, and here it is also one community. So it is like ki what they will produce, it might not be possible for them to produce, and whatever they produce, it is not important कि ये भी वैसा produce कर पाएं, right. So कुछ barter trade kind of system must have also started, and who will do that? It will be done by the merchants, it will be done by the trade guilds, right. So they are the people who are going to do it. So somewhere trade started, with trade conflicts started, conflicts के साथ war, acquiring each other's territory, acquiring each other's wealth, all of that must have started. Very important. Now health worsened. Now very important, just try to understand this. See, when agriculture started na, abhi tak jab agriculture was not there na, people did not have many diseases that came with agriculture, because when you manipulated the land, many viruses, bacteria that were buried under the land came in contact with the humans. Also jab agriculture hoga, you will stagnate water, you like rice mein kitna zyada water gets stagnated. With that, many kind of mosquito borne or vector borne diseases must have come. So it is also called the age of diseases, because a flurry of new diseases came in, right, which were due to the coming in contact with the soil and the bacteria that there were, right. So age of health of people worsened because with manipulation, many times due to the vagaries of the environment, which they were not very अभी भी कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहे थे, उसकी वजह से, फॉर एग्जाम्पल समटाइम्स अ फेमाइन कम्स और अ ड्राउट लाइक सिचुएशन कम्स. अभी भी क्योंकि अब उन्होंने हंटिंग गैदरिंग छोड़ दिया था, दे वर लिविंग इन अ सेटल्ड कम्युनिटीज़, तो अब जब फेमाइन आ जाएगा एंड दे विल नॉट हैव फूड एंड परसिस्टेंट फेमाइन है, तो दे विल नॉट हैव फूड, तो उसकी वजह से people will not have food and hunger and mortality actually grew. So agriculture, as much as it is a revolution, it is also seen in the other perspective, because agriculture आने की वजह से many problems for humans also started. For example, sedentary lifestyle के साथ obesity was one of the things. Obesity, right, because अब हमारा इतना ज़्यादा hunting gathering requires a lot of energy, you need to be very very mobile, quick. So obesity came. Our diversified food habits got somewhere down the line, we got into monotonous kind of food. Monotonous की वजह से क्या हुआ basically, for example, पहले आप berries खा रहे थे, you were eating meat, you were eating plants, you were eating fruits, every kind of diversified balanced diet, which is you can call in today's time. But when rice or cereals came in, dependence on cereal grew, so that way the vitamins, minerals that they were getting from balanced diet वो कम हो गया. So with that, deficiencies in vitamins and minerals also started. फिर मैंने आपको ये बता ही दिया कि how new bacterial and vector borne diseases came in and mortality was high. So in that way, even though it is called the revolution, agricultural revolution, but it is lesser known fact कि it created a lot of problems also for humans, right. So health worsened. Then role of sexes in society fixed, because the point is agriculture is a more a male oriented job, because उसमें strength somewhere is required, क्योंकि आपको plow share के साथ काम करना है. So all of that required hard manual labor, which was done by men. So when men did the economic activities, and females took care of the household, took care of the child. So with that, eventually and gradually, the role of female in the society decreased, even though it was invented by females, right? So irrigation, we have seen ki irrigation they were doing, and they were creating delightful drinks by fermentation of grains and fruits. So kahin na kahin it's like wine, या कुछ ऐसे ऐसे they must have come up with fermented drinks, to keep themselves happy, and to relax, and to know to have a party kind of thing, so in a lighter way. So these were the general features. It is called a revolution because agriculture, pottery, wheel, these were very very significant inventions which had manifold impact on the society. Having said so, कुछ इश्यूज भी हुए, जैसे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स आ गए, हेल्थ वर्सन हो गई, सोसाइटी में क्लासेस डेवलप हो गई, ठीक है, इनइक्वालिटी आ गई, राइट, विमेन का रोल कम हो गया. सो ऑल ऑफ दैट, सो यू कैन मेक अ बैलेंस्ड आंसर with this. So I hope you liked today's lecture. Tomorrow we will start with the next part, Chalcolithic. And guys, if you have any suggestions, please do tell me. I'll be happy to take them. And please join the Telegram channel. There we will have discussions with other fellow aspirants also. So please do like, share and subscribe. Please share my channel. It will motivate me to come up with great content for you guys. And thank you.